Stroop waffles clearly don't have the same effect on race days they do on qualifying and practice for Daniel Ricciardo. Alonso shows us that old guys still have it, and Max Verstappen wins the first Dutch Grand Prix in 36 years. G'day there. My name is James Baldwin, and welcome to another episode of Lakeside Drive's F1 podcast. And in this episode, we are reviewing the Dutch Grand Prix. And I'm joined by my friends and yours, the two Thomases, Tommy T and Thomas J. Camp. Lads, welcome to the live stream. Good to have you with me.
G'day, mate. G'day, Campy.
Gentlemen, how are you all?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you doing, Campy? How's your arm?
Yes, how's your arm, Campy?
It's falling off. Put it that way.
What did you do today, Campy?
I didn't do anything today.
Oh, didn't you? Okay, fair enough. All right.
Didn't do anything. Might have got a little COVID shot in the arm.
Good guy.
Oh, well,
I
so
might
nothing
have,
at all.
but I also might have paid the doctor $500 just to fill out the form for me and tick me off the list. So I'll let you guys be the judge.
Oh, good.
Somerville Eramosa Medical Clinic. That's the one to go to if you want to pay for it. Just throwing it out there.
I look forward to the legal case that they bring
Yes.
against us for that. Of course, allegedly that happened, right, Tommy T?
Yeah, allegedly.
Nothing but allegedly.
It didn't happen.
Jeez, that's the first bit of
We're off to a ripping start.
Oh,
going
yeah.
on a lot.
Anyway.
Hey, is this going live? He says yes. So let me clearly throw everyone under the bus. Well, look, if you're watching on the YouTube live stream, great to have you company here. Thank you for being with us. And thank you to you, wherever you are, listening or watching, for subscribing to our YouTube channel. As I said in the last episode, which was our pre-drinks podcast, which you can listen to or watch. We even did the video for that one. So make sure you go back and do that. We are chasing 1,000 subs by the end of the year. That makes a huge difference for us. As I said, it costs you nothing, but it makes a massive difference for the algorithm, and all things serve the algorithm, which clearly is now my full-time job with as many bloody podcasts as I do. I also want to give a shout out, of course, to the Discord server. We had a couple of people join yesterday as well. You would have seen an incredible community, isn't it, lads, if you were awake to watch it at least, to see how many people have great opinions. And there's also really great banter and discussions too. You don't have to have the same opinion to be on the show. Clearly, Campy is wrong at everything, but we still let him hang around. And I want to give 3 shout outs to 3 different people for reviewing the podcast. 3 5-star reviews, which is fantastic. Sarah Kelly C from Ireland. She says, Gaz podcast, probably Gas, not Gaz, like Gasly podcast. Funny, entertaining, but detailed. Clearly not talking about Campy in that point. These guys are honestly so good, super fun to listen to, and really enjoyed the detailed breakdown. Yes, we are the opposite of Sky F1. We talk about everyone, not just 3 British people. The best, says Jack12345 from Australia. Love this podcast. Here for the DR bias and classic Aussie humour. These guys will never fail to give me a good laugh, along with great insight to F1. And taking the piss out of F1, Vincenzo Spiteri from Australia says as well, compulsory listening / viewing of the boys. If you love F1 and hate the Sky F1 Britfest, this is the place for you. F1 from a distinctly Aussie point of view. Discussion about the fly past, national anthems, and all things, everything to do with the F1 broadcast. Subscribe and enjoy. Guys, thank you, because it genuinely takes you, and Tommy T knows this, for writing a stupid review on my Extreme E podcast. It takes you time to sit down and do that, and I genuinely appreciate it. The other boys genuinely appreciate it
We do.
as well. Enough from me. Let's talk about the race, shall we? Tommy T, let's start with you. It was a very, very scary start potentially for Daniel Ricciardo. We didn't find this out afterwards, and you boy may not have watched this at this point, but Ant Davidson on the Sky Pad picked it up that Danny Rick, as he entered the pit box, couldn't get his car into gear. In fact, had his left hand out of the car trying to get the attention of one of the guys on the side wall, and his mind would have been everywhere. And as Ant said, his brain would have been dead, and that was his start of his race. Of course, we had the smoke issues too. What did you think, Tommy T, of Daniel's start?
Well, didn't know that until later on, but yeah, I think he had an okay start. He seemed to hold his position. He managed to get one position because someone dropped back. I think it was Giovinazzi. So everyone kind of moved up in front, but fine, I guess. We were hoping for something, I guess. That was the only opportunity he was going to get to really make places, but Yeah, it was a bit unnerving to see the smoke and him kind of lose a little bit of power, it seemed, and just have to kind of coast around for a few laps until it resolved itself. But we've seen this before with the McLaren. He's had another race similar where they've managed to fix the smoking kind of oil slick problem on track, which is good, but also not good that it's happened more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah, not sure.
Campy?
I'll correct Tommy. He didn't have a great start. He did lose a position to at least George Russell, I believe, and maybe he was behind Giovinazzi at one stage. But those guys went on the inside into turn 3, and Danny Rick took the traditional racing line around the outside and got past both of them, which got him up one position from his starting place. But yeah, a bit of a shame because he really needed, for his strategy to work, he really needed to jump those two Alpines or at least get in front of one of them. But yeah, since we found out about his gearbox issue on the start line, I think hey, he still got off the line. Not the greatest start. It would have his heart rate would have spiked massively just sitting there trying to sort it
Yep.
out. It's good recovery start from him, I suppose. And I think there's a few gremlins with that car this week, particularly after Q2 into going into Q3. Car just seemed to change, and I think that carried on that same setup into the race, and it just didn't feel right for him.
Talk to us about the strategy, Campy, because on McLaren's social media channels, there has been the biggest support I have seen to date of Daniel Ricciardo. Of course, we know that Lando outperformed him in the race, didn't he, because of the strategy, not necessarily because of the pace. But DR out-qualified Lando. What was actually going on in your mind in that space?
I think the one stop for the mid-pack cars, I'm talking about the Ferraris, the Alpines, and the McLarens are the one we're sort of comparing everything to do. The one stop was always going to be the strategy. For the front runners, being the Red Bull and the Mercedes, they could make the two-stop work because they were able to build the gap to those midfield teams back. As to Danny Rick, I think his strategy was compromised from the start because he had to start on the soft.
Yeah.
And Lando behind him had the optimum tyre for the race standing on the mediums. Still had to make some passes, but we could see there was enough pace in that McLaren to take the pit stop and then jump a few of his rivals in the front. Yeah, I just think he carried a few gremlins. Whatever happened to the car between Q2 and Q3, I think he took that into the race. I mean, he still was a pretty solid race pace for at least the first stint. And he pitted way too early in comparison to Lando. Hence why he took one. He said afterwards, he said, I didn't have to let him pass, but I took one for the team and let Lando get up the road to chase Alonso, hoping that he could hold off Perez for a few laps as well. And he did that for, 7 or 8 laps before he got past. But I mean, that Red Bull was in a league of its own this weekend with Max Verstappen. And we saw Perez come right through the grid as well and pass a hell of a lot of people on track. So he was always going to get past Danny Rick, but I think Danny Rick holding him up for that 7-8 laps. I mean, ultimately it didn't work out to save Lando because he got past him too. But I still think the car race pace wise setups not where he wants it. I think he's turned a page and he's getting better, but it's nowhere near where he wants it to be, and he's disappointed. But he knows he's on the improve, so that's a good thing. As for Lando, I think good race. He just got lucky with strategy. It doesn't seem like Danny Rick can get anything right, and when he does get it right, he's compromised by a few different things. But 8-5 in qualifying now, I certainly think he's turned a leaf there.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of races where Lando had some laps deleted in his pole lap, but 8-5, it's looking pretty respectable. If you can get it to 8-7, I mean, that's almost bare bones even. And then we're saying, oh, Jesus, Lando as good as we thought. I think Lando's race pace is a bit better at the moment, but Danny Rick's coming, and he'll be by the 3/4 mark of this season, he will be, right with Lando, I think, and it's that last quarter of the year that he'll just do the Danny Rick things that we want him and thought he would do straight off the gun.
Yeah, certainly we obviously are very biased about Daniel, and we make no apologies for that. At least we talk about the rest of the grid with our bias. But for us, I think, and for a lot of people all across the world, they want to see Daniel do well because even through this adversity, even through this hardship, he has kept his composure, he's kept his cool, he's kept his smile. Not once has he ever looked out of character angry, sad, disappointed. He's looked a little, oh, well, it could have been better, but he's managed to hold himself up. And honestly, I think that takes a lot as just a human being at the best of times, let alone having such a significant fan base and his own pressure, his parents' pressure, his mates' pressure. He's not just doing it for himself, he's doing it for so many other Australians, for Italiano too. Italiano, although slightly heavier now because he's eaten about 15 tons of Stroop waffles, still carries a lot of the same burden as Danny Rick. Anyway, it's good to see. I'm glad that that's happening and it's getting up and out for him, as you say, Campy. But before the end of the year, potentially we might finish 2021 with an outperforming Daniel Rick to Lando Norris qualifying statistic, which would be absolutely ace, wouldn't it? Tommy T, Valtteri Bottas and the fastest lap saga. Also, as a side note, this looks like a mugshot of you if you're watching live on YouTube. It's like he's got one dark side of his face. He's against a really weird wall. He's got a black jumper on. It's not a good look.
Mugshot.
It's no good. So live from the cells, do tell me, what are your thoughts on Valtteri Bottas?
I wanted that fastest lap to stand. That would have been the biggest double middle finger to Mercedes on his way out, wouldn't it? It looked like in the third sector that he pulled back and still managed to get the fast lap. He should have just floored it. I was yelling at my TV and then again today at my phone. I was like, come on, baby, do it, mate. I was like, just tell him to get stuffed. When we heard the Valtteri, it's James, I was like, you're kidding me. Yeah. I really would have loved to see that. And then you could hear in Lewis's voice how pissed off he was. They had to come back in, put on a new set of tyres and do the fastest lap.
Yeah, it wasn't any good. Campy, what did you think?
Look, I don't think Valtteri's that sort of guy. We'd love him to be, but he's just not. He's a team man and he's a professional man. Behind closed doors, he will be seething.
Oh yeah,
and he'll be fuming with himself. He'll be fuming at the team. But we've had this before. I remember him leading in Sochi a few years ago when the Mercs were coming up against the Ferraris quite strongly, and they said, "Yeah, we're going to let Lewis pass," and he copped it on the chin. I don't think the team's really showed him any. I mean, he's been there for 6 years, so that negates my point. I would wish Mercedes showed the guy a hell of a lot more loyalty than what they have done, because he's willing to cop it on the chin and do things for the team. But yeah, there's a part of me that wishes he doesn't, but we're just not going to see that from Bottas. But in his mind, there may be some small opportunities and some conversations behind closed doors that he's still trying to hang on to that dream to drive for Mercedes next year. We know Lewis prefers him as a teammate next year. He said, "We've done amazing things for this team. I want you here next year." So, look, Mercedes will probably go the other way. It's been announced, but
being the skeptic that I am,
yes, do go
Lewis
on.
Just saying that because it's already been a done deal and he can get some good points in. Like, if the deal's done, there's no harm in him going, "Oh, I wish you could have stayed, mate. You were my choice," knowing that it's fully.
I understand what you mean.
Wet.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but we spoke about this previously. Lewis is going to do anything he can to protect his legacy. The last thing he wants is for a young little shit to come in and pants him next year in the same machinery. Not that I think it'll happen,
but that's George's intention, hey?
Yeah, that's George's intention, and that's why he's going into that team, to make it his own. He doesn't want to be there for 2 years and let Lewis drive on into the summer, and then him be sitting there with the hands on the team. Oh, we've got the B grade driver, and we have to get someone new in. He wants to take command of this team straight away and stick it to an 8-time world champion or 7-time world champion. Not that I think it will happen, but I think Lewis will be more interested in protecting his legacy and his reputation within the sport next year
for sure
than he will be with.
The other good thing to pick up on from the broadcast yesterday is probably the best grid walk we've ever had, where Nico Rosberg admitted that he used to have a little wee in the car ahead of a race start, and he apologized to his Williams mechanics back in the day. He's like, "Yeah, I don't have time to go to the bathroom. I just sit and go for a little wee in the car." I was like, "What am I listening to? This is gold dust."
You reckon he ate a bit of asparagus beforehand as well?
That was the weird. Did he remember he was on TV? He was odd.
It was
just he was trying to get thumbs up from people and just like going to stand in front of someone. He's like, "Oh, this is my old pit mechanic. I'm just gonna go stand in front of him and stare at him until he gives me an eye."
Yeah, except it
He's
wasn't.
it
He's
was
like,
like, "Oh no, it's not him. I'm
it's not him.
mistaken." Dude, he's off his chops. That guy was
Germans,
weird.
mate, they're a bit odd.
Yeah, but what I also loved was after the race. So Jensen Button was also there, and I think we all like JB. I like Nico.
Yes.
Actually, Nico's growing on me with his absolute ridiculousness. But the little commentary they had at the end with Lazenby, where the cameraman just completely cut Lazenby out of the shot and just had Nico and Jensen talking about what it was like for Mercedes and Valtteri and the fastest lap and what he would have done. And Jensen saying one thing and Nico saying the other thing. And you could kind of tell they're like having a little bit of like a moment of, can you shut up, mate? I'm a world champion. No, I'm a world champion. Well,
Oh,
I've been
I'm
a world champion more recently. Well, I was a world champion in a team that didn't start with Mercedes. So shut up.
Yeah.
I was the OG Mercedes. Anyway, it was very funny. It was.
Yeah.
I really, really loved that. So I'm here for that. Just bring back Martin so we can have something to shut up David Croft at some point. I cannot
JB
stand
was
it.
good.
I
I
like
think
Crofty.
JB was
I
good.
Crofty's good.
I like Crofty. Righto,
apparently
get
you
yourself
don't.
in the bin. We're going to continue on, lads. I will pull you out, Campy, when I feel like it. It's ridiculous. Let's talk about the grid, shall we? From the back to the front, we will start with Mazepin, who had a DNF, and he was defending like an absolute lunatic against Schumacher, who finished in 18th. No good, gentlemen. Campy, get out of the bin. What can you tell us about, and if you saw the defense from Mazepin to Schumacher?
They're racing cars at 300 kilometres an hour. I don't blame him for defending like a tit. They've all done it.
Have we?
But to
I've
squeeze,
never driven 300
No,
kilometers an
neither
hour
have I.
defending.
To
No,
squeeze into the pit lane on the main straight is like, come on, mate, too much,
Well,
surely.
Good riddance. Look at Schumacher's dad and the
Good
prick of a
riddance.
driver he was at time. He's just copping it on the track. Off track, you can argue about who's a dickhead and who's a nice guy, but on track, all bets are off. I mean, good riddance to the kids. Suck it up. It's a bit of hard racing. Just get over it. F1 will jump at shadows at the moment. They're that scared to bloody offend or do something wrong. Bit of aggressive driving on track. Bring it back. Who cares?
Okay, good. Well, Mazepin's in the bin for me. Tommy T is in the bin for you too. Why?
He's
Hang on a
nodded.
second. Sorry. Why are you? This is like the other episode with Harry Potter and bloody Lord of the Rings. You're supporting David Croft and Nikita Mazepin. Are
It's
you
just
bloody
backwards.
right, mate?
Bizarro campy.
Unbelievable.
I'm
Maybe you are
always-
having some side effects from your bloody AstraZeneca. Tommy T, to go on.
Mazepin is just a weird guy, isn't he?
Oh,
I
he's
think
the-
he's holding a bit of a grudge from what happened maybe in qualifying.
No
I don't
arguments
think they
there.
get along. I don't think they get along, to be honest, those two drivers. I reckon they're just like playing happy families to the media, but I really think they are not liking each other.
Mm.
They're both from kind of semi-privileged. Well, everyone is privileged in F1, let's be honest. But they're from kind of privilege
Don't
with
use
money
that word.
backing.
Here we go.
But do you know what I mean? I think they're both kind of like, well, I'll get what I want. No, I'll get what I want. And I think they're kind of struggling to deal with each other in that part of their relationship. And it's manifesting now at 300 kilometers an hour in very dangerous ways.
Mm. Yeah, it's no good. No good at all.
Yeah, but
and-
Schumacher shouldn't have let him get past on the first lap, and it wouldn't have been an issue. So
Yeah, it's
there
all-
you go.
All right. Well, yeah, disappointing for Schumacher because, I mean, clearly he's the liked one out of that relationship. Williams, George Russell. Well, 2nd to 17th, my friend. Here is the reality of driving a Williams around this track. And Nick Latifi outperformed you in 16th. Tommy T, no points for Russell. That must be making you happy.
I've kind of left that one. It's done now.
Oh, you've departed the station.
Well, he's got his point. It's happened. It was good when he had no points. It was kind of funny. It was going to be like
It
one of
was
those
funny.
longest records, like when Hulkenberg had never had a podium. It was going to be like one of those ones that the commentators bring it every time. He's still never had a point. He's 200 races in. He's never had a point. That's what I was hoping for. I wanted the longest stat ever. But no,
Oh,
I think
good.
Latifi's been getting
Oh,
way better. I think he
yep.
needs a bit more credit for like George is an incredible driver. Well, Campy doesn't necessarily know that yet. He wants to wait and see. But I think like Latifi's actually proven himself quite well in his qualifying pace, in his race pace. I mean, we don't get to see him really compete with anyone else on track other than the Haas cars and maybe some Alphas if they drop back. But he's been doing fine. I wouldn't be kicking him out of that car too
No,
quickly. I would
no.
want to keep him in for the next year or two
Well,
and see what he can do.
he came out and said when or if George Russell leaves, I can assume the leadership role in this team, and I think he can. I mean, you look at the gains that George Russell's made in his third year in this car. Um, he's driving exceptionally well. I still stand by my comments yesterday. He's driving a Williams. We don't really know anything about him at the moment
Yeah.
until we get him up against quality drivers week in, week out at the top of the grid. You can't make genuine assessments on these guys. Although he has seemed to be out driving that Williams at times. In saying that, you look at the results that he had last year, Latifi's starting to get those results he had last year too. It seems like
Well,
the
and Senna.
third year in these organisations that guys are making these massive jumps, a bit like Lando. George has done the same. So maybe Latifi's time is next year, and once he gets out of George's shadow, it'll be his time to shine, unless he comes up against the Bottas next year and gets shown up as incompetent. Well, we don't really know. It's all speculation. But Latifi has been going under the radar a bit, and I think he's actually, I think he's, I think he's pretty accomplished off track. I just his
Yeah.
professionalism.
Yep.
I mean, we don't see a lot of him on the media, but when I do see him, I'm like, oh, I didn't know he sounded like that. I expected something different. But this year
You're so right.
he's starting to come out of his shell, and we're starting to see a bit more of him, a
Yep.
bit more outspoken. I think he's got a bit more respect in the paddock.
Yeah.
And he'll be around for another couple of years, I think. And I think
Yeah.
it'll be he's another one. He could be a bit like a who's he a
Better
good
than the other
comparison
Canadian,
to?
that's for sure.
He's going to be Marcus Ericsson, I think, isn't he? He's going to be around for a
Uh,
long time. He's going to be in the same team for all of his F1 career,
I'm
and he'll
going
be a
back a bit.
benchmark.
I think he could possibly be a race winner like a Giancarlo Fisichella or something
Yeah,
in that
okay.
Renault with Fernando Alonso. That's what he sort of reminds me of at the moment. So, yeah, anyway, look, good
But I
riddance to
think
him.
is it's interesting, Campy, isn't it? Because if he was in a car, let's say like if they were sort of more around that Alpine level, and we'll talk about Alpine in a little bit, but in terms of though the performance that they have been getting more recently in the sort of mid to higher mid pack, if
Yep.
he was in a machinery to do the same, I think he's consistent enough to be able to deliver week in, week out.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
I certainly think that if next year's that Williams goes forward a little bit and they'll have Mercedes power units and all that sort of other stuff, which is fantastic for them. And he comes up alongside someone like Alex Albon, who has the experience of the Red Bull team to bring in the development side now for Red Bull too, because I imagine also Alex has been driving the 2022 Red Bull car in simulators as the reserve and test driver.
Yep.
He might be able to bring some of that as well to Williams, which will be very, very helpful. And so that'll just end up driving the team forward. So if they can be in a position to grab a 6th to 4th position, potentially a podium, as you say, then good for him and more power to him. Because as I said last episode in the pre-drinks, it'll be the nicest team on the grid, and we are here for that. Alfa Romeo, Tommy T, Kubica, he actually performed pretty well. 15th in the end.
Yeah.
He's only
Solid,
right
man.
behind Giovinazzi, who
Yeah.
really didn't have a good time. But that was good for Robert, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he would be stoked with that result, having come in cold, and like you can be doing other formulas, you can be doing other categories of motorsport. Nothing's going to compare you to the G-force you're going to hit in this. So for his body, which is unprepared for Formula One at the moment, to do that and perform at that level, I think is pretty incredible, to be honest, and just good for a good guy like Robert to be back in the sport. And we assume he'll be there next week because it's doubtful Kimi will be right for Monza. So he'll get to back it up again with another performance and like a proper kind of preparation, do all the practices because he came in pretty late. It was what FP3 that he
Yeah, it
got
was
to
his
have a
first
run
drive,
round.
yeah.
Yeah, so he'll actually get to have a proper full practice, get to work with the team properly rather than rush it all overnight, essentially. So it'll be good.
Yeah, Campy, what did you think?
Yeah, on paper it was a good weekend. I just didn't see a lot of it. Like I
No.
didn't see a lot of him on track. I missed the interviews afterwards. The result looked pretty good, but I think it comes down to strategy. I mean, Giovinazzi started in the top 10 on the soft, and that would severely compromise his race strategy, a bit like Danny Ricks, really. So
Yeah.
no wonder the sister car ended up so close behind him at the end of the race. But look, in saying that, great result. Good on paper. It's good to see him still around in F1, and he's living his dream, right?
Giovinazzi, though, solid qualifying, his best ever. We said in the pre-drinks podcast, he's now driving for his seat, isn't he, Tommy T?
Yeah.
But he just had really big problems through this race. Zandvoort, as we predicted, was going to be difficult to overtake. But his start was fairly good. But then he had the Alpines around him. He had Daniel behind. He had the Ferraris around, and he just got squeezed. I think Carlos squeezed him a little bit too far, which made him dip a wheel on the gravel, and he kind of sort of lost his vibe then, and it was almost all over. But do you think he has the ability to bring it back in Monza and continue that sort of qualifying mindset going forward?
Yeah, well, if it's the Alpha Revolt, I think it'll definitely suit that Monza track more than it would Zandvoort. I think this race, because it's so strategic, like Monaco, tyre choice at the start is so crucial. So starting at 11th is better than starting like even 6th or 7th at this kind of race, because you get to choose your strategy.
Yeah.
If you're starting on that soft, you've already like removed half of your options for strategic kind of moves.
Yep.
If you don't get to start on your choice, you are so compromised. And we saw that with Daniel as well, and the Alpines, like kind of the only ones to make it work with the Ferraris on the softs, because they were that bit further up. But it is really such a deal breaker on tracks like this where you can't pass and do alternate things, because it's all in when you pit. So I'd like to see these kind of tracks maybe where they move away from that kind of, maybe this is the sprint race kind of track where you do something else, I guess, rather than the traditional qualifying where you're stuck with tire choice, because the sprint race left you to pick what you wanted.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think it's a really tough one for those kind of 9th, 10th kind of people, because they're at such a disadvantage to the people behind. So, but back to your point about Giovinazzi, I think he'll be fine because he qualified well. It was kind of out of his hands, and I think the team know that. He did fine for what he was kind of gifted, and he's still got a few more races to back it up. Hopefully Monza's a bit more his way.
Yeah. Look, we like Italian Jesus. It would only suit him to be, significantly in the points for Monza. And of course, as you reminded me, I'd forgotten, sprint racing's back. Yay.
We got a sprint race from Monza.
I've just remembered,
God.
as you said that. Oh, good. Aston Martin. Now, this was a terrible, terrible weekend for Aston Martin. We know Seb was interrupted by the both Haas cars in his qualifying run. Nico Rosberg said to the team principal before the race started, he said, Otmar, you guys just aren't that quick this weekend. And Otmar's like, oh, hang on, no. Well, we've got good race pace, as you would have seen yesterday. Well, you don't, mate, do you? Because it wasn't a good weekend. Sebastian of old too came out in the middle of the track there. Tommy T had a bit of a
drift
spin
on the bank.
He held it though, didn't he?
He held it. He didn't spin. It was just a big old drift, and then he hung, and then Bottas had to evade, and then he just continued on his way. I thought he was going to keep it going with a bit of like reverse lock there, and just keep going.
Enter Teriyaki Boys Tokyo Drift song. Yes.
J-turn, middle of the race. That'd be quite cool to watch, wouldn't it?
But Mr. Safnow, what do you think, Campy? Is he right to say that they had race pace in showing in the free practices, or were they just Aston Martin just wasn't anywhere this weekend?
Oh, look, he's the head of an organisation. He's got to stay positive and give the brand something to hang their hat on overnight. In reality, they were the worst performing team outside of Alfa Romeo, Williams, and Haas. And it's not where we've seen them recently. I mean, Seb's had some stunning drives this year, particularly, last 5 or 6 races. But it's not where they are. They had it. I don't put it down to them not having the pace to match it with the teams in front. I think they got qualifying wrong. Some things in practice, they missed some stuff. I mean, Seb's electrical engines in the car. I mean, time on track when we've only got 3-hour practice sessions before a qualifying is vital. And when, something happens to your car and red flags, it's tough to bounce back from that. And I just think they had a bad weekend. I don't think that'll be the same result at Monza. I think you're always going to see one of them in the top 10, most likely, more often than not. That'll be Seb Vettel as opposed to Lance Stroll. But, I just think they had a bad weekend, and they'll lucky they got to get to go racing next week because their heads will be in the sand. They'll all be a bit frustrated with it. I mean, it's a tough track too. I mean, as a spectacle for the Dutch fans to get out there, the way they supported it, and Max and his home race and how he really pioneered getting that race. Awesome to watch on TV. Atmosphere looked awesome. Don't know about the type of music, but I've copped that on the chin. No, but the fans and the flares and all the stuff that they got around this race and got around. Unfortunately, the track's a stinker. Looks good. No, but to race on, it's shit house. That's easy fixed. I mean, we've done it with Melbourne. That's traditionally not a great track to race on. Just tinker with them. Make the straights that extra 400 or 500 meters longer so that there's some genuine opportunities to pass. I mean, they've got the crux of it all. It looks like a roller coaster. It's everything's got a camber on it, whether it be positive, negative into the corners. The banking on, particularly in 3 and 13, awesome to watch. But as a racetrack, it's shit. So, but they can fix it. I mean, it's easy to fix. It doesn't suit these modern era cars too. They're so big.
Yeah.
They're getting heavier every year. They're getting wider.
Yeah.
The speeds are astronomical. I mean, it would have been a great track in yesteryear. I mean, even mid to early 90s, you know, it would have been a stonking track where guys could genuinely drive at 115% the whole race and still, you know, the track the cars hadn't outgrown the track, but unfortunately that's what we're looking at. But we all predicted it. We knew it would happen. I would hope moving forward that the Netherlands or the Dutchies get a race every bloody year because they deserve it on what we saw from the fans and everything this weekend. Yeah. But fix it, get it right, get the track in a place where it's better for racing. And
Monza's got a lot to live up to, doesn't it? To be honest, because they've set the standard in the Netherlands. I think that's what you want from the fans. Like, it was insane to see Max on his final lap. He came across the line, and the flares, everyone who had a flare left was letting it go on that final lap. Just a sea of orange with orange smoke and then fireworks as he crossed the line.
That was awesome.
Loud as hell. It's exactly what you want.
And also, I love how the organisers were like, make sure you leave your flares at home. Wink. Because even on the formation lap, like it had already been done. There was already so much orange smoke.
It was insane.
Oh,
visibility was probably worse this week than last week.
I like it.
Yes, very good.
Flares to the AusGP next year in April.
A quick trip to prison shortly thereafter.
Look, boys, off track quickly. The Herald Sun wrote an article last
That's a
week.
good name for a podcast, Campy. Sorry, just to cut in there, off track. Would you like to...
you are a
plug. James.
Is there another good podcast called Off Track? Just asking.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Oh, of course
I've listened to it. He's actually a really good podcast. You should listen to Off Track with James.
Michael Italiano, that guy, what a voice.
Laminato.
Wrong.
Sorry, we interviewed both of them in like the same night.
You did. We did, right.
Laminato, black guy's voice. What a great voice.
Here we
He's
go.
got a great voice.
You ruined it. You ruined that, Campy.
Such a great host too, don't you think?
Stop it.
Anyway, the Herald Sun released an article. The Victorian government has put forward a proposal to Formula One to not hold the race in March when its traditional start would be. They want to hold it at the end of April, and that would be ideal for them. I can imagine the Formula One organisation saying, "You know what, Melbourne? Fuck you. We're not coming to you. We're not coming to your country next year. Stop changing it. You've had plenty of time to get on top of it. We're not coming. We're going to go to Adelaide or Sydney because you guys have blown it." And why is the Victorian government trying to dictate to the F1 when they want to race? Ridiculous.
It just shows they don't understand.
We're the traditional start of the season here in Melbourne. We love it. We've been missing it. Hell, we've only had one race here in the 3.5 years we've been doing this podcast now. So, look, we're hanging to see it, but unfortunately, it's not looking like we'll get there at the moment.
Yeah, again, it just shows that the Victorian government has no understanding of what international motorsport is. They're like, well, clearly you guys want to come here. Like, there are so many Formula One tracks in the world, as we've seen, who have replaced Portugal, Mugello, for example, Turkey, Istanbul. I'm like, just so many. Anyway, it just, guys, get it together, please. To both. And for
we need some positive media in our state at the moment because it's a shit show on the world stage. At least put an F1 event on and say, hey, it's not as bad as everyone's saying.
But also to see
Anyway.
the Dutch Grand Prix and that many fans, like it's
Oh,
depressing. Being in
awesome.
lockdown and seeing that, it's like, oh, I bloody wish we could be there doing that. Anyway, before we get dragged into too much of it, let's continue on because we can talk depressively about McLaren. Danny Rick in 11th and Lando Norris in 10th. Campy, to you first. We spoke a little bit at the start of the podcast, but overall, strategy was not good for Daniel, was it?
No, as I said, he started on the soft, so he didn't get his strategy right. He really needed to qualify in that 5th or 6th position, and he needed to split those Ferraris. Unfortunately, whatever happened to the car in Q3, wind changing just didn't quite have it. I think McLaren would be pretty frustrated. It's the first time they've been 4th in the constructors this year. I think some of these points are going to be hard to come by in the foreseeable races. I think with McLaren having to spend all their upgrade bonus points on before the year even started, I think we're going to see them drop off towards the end of the year, and they'll probably be the 4th, maybe the 5th best car on the grid by the end of the year. Bit of a shame for them, but they'll keep their chin up, and big year for them next year. They'll be world champions with Danny Rick behind the wheel, and be good to watch. So, look, we're just sucking eggs at the moment. Just wait for it. So we just got to stay positive and not get cynical about it. We know Zach Brown is a superstar as the CEO of that organisation, where he's brought it from to where it is now and where it's going to continue to go in the future. It is only going to get better and better. We just got to shut down this Lando guy somehow. I don't know how we do it. I saw Danny Rick stole his watch in an interview the other day. So maybe that's what.
Steal it, or did he say nice watch?
Tried to. What a savage.
I said to Campy on a previous episode, you can't say something like that, and we edited it out. And then bloody Ricardo goes and does exactly the same thing. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
Can do that. I guess it's okay.
So maybe you should do that every time before qualifying. Maybe that'll put Lando off a bit. But no, the things are only up for McLaren. It's just a bit of a doozy weekend.
Tommy T, I know you fell asleep for pretty much all of it, not to throw you under the bus, but at one point, Daniel was on the hards and his gap to Fernando Alonso was growing. It went from about 10 or 11 seconds to 16 seconds, and we saw Lando Norris come out of the pits just at that time, and we were very worried, of course, that he would get past very quickly. And then Daniel started closing the gap to Alonso again. Do you think there were some team orders in there in terms of trying to back up, provide a little bit more of a space? Because at that point in the race, McLaren had sort of resigned themselves to the fact that Daniel wasn't going to be the fastest car, and they had to invest that strategy in Lando.
Yeah. At that point, Daniel had already pitted and his tyres were already getting older and older. He had no chance of progressing, whereas Lando, the other car, did. So there's 100% team orders there. They said, if you can back it up, we can make a gap for Lando. And you saw pretty quickly that Lando came out just behind Daniel, and they switched that around real quick. I think Daniel just was resigned to that was his job for the day, unfortunately. And I think, like we've talked about before, he could go down the route of like, stuff everyone, I'm here to win every single race all the time, or he could play a bit of the long play this year and know that, hey, I'm still not comfortable. I've got to work with these guys going into the future. Maybe it's worth building some credibility, doing the right team things now, so that when it comes around next year, when I'm in the right car that's built around me with an opportunity, it'll come back twofold. And I think he's just he's just playing the team game right now. He's doing everything he can to get alongside all the McLaren guys, so that they're on his side come next year when things flip.
Yep, I think that's a very, very good analysis, mate. Very well put.
And I bloody watched it today, so you can shut up.
But at the end of the day, points for the team are important, and he knows that, right? So as hard as it is to watch and as gut-wrenching as it is to watch, we know he's doing it for 2022 and beyond. You know, they're going to make sure that they try and tie up that third position. And Campy, you're right in terms of what's to come. It's going to be harder as Ferrari continue to grow, because they've kind of been very quiet recently, haven't they, in terms of what's going on. Let's talk about Alpine before we talk about Ferrari. Fernando Alonso in 6th, old men doing things, that headline should read, and Ocon in 9th. This team getting it a little bit more together. Campy, traditionally, would you have said that this track would have suited a Renault of yesteryear? Because I wouldn't have thought necessarily it would have been that good, but these two were putting in a really good effort.
Well, I look at Monaco last year. Danny Rick put it in fourth, I believe. So there is some genuine pace in this Renault, or this Alpine, sorry, Renault.
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 There is Carlos.
No, there's some genuine pace in it. Last year, we saw them for 5 or 6 races on the trot. Looked like they had the measure of all the midfield teams. But then, I mean, characteristics of the car. I know I actually predicted them to be quick, and I don't think we should be scoffing at what Fernando Alonso's doing in this car this year. I think if Danny Rick was still in it, it'd be a far better car. It'd be, Danny Rick would have been beaten Gasly this weekend in that Renault. So look, I think Renault are probably the 5th best team on the grid, but I mean it's close between them and AlphaTauri at times. So
Bring it back. We haven't heard that for such a long time.
Campy debuted a new one today. He said, "I know, I want to keep it going. I really liked it." He said Lewis was going to drive off into the summer instead of the sunset.
Yeah, I know.
He's going to drive off into the summer, and I'm here for it. I think that should be on a t-shirt. Drive off into the summer.
Could you imagine the Campy collection? Tommy T, can I please request you do a Campy collection of merchandise? Grid on the car. Fantastic.
I love it.
One does not simply slurp
Campy.
Oxygen.
What do you do? I can't, buddy. I'm not professional. I'm not perfect, but that's what people enjoy. I don't like polished, Anyway, I'll get better. I'm getting better. I'm trying to anyway.
Yeah, you're great, mate. You're killing it.
I can actually string a sentence together and speak for 45 seconds without
dying.
Anyway,
you're doing very well. Do continue.
I'm a bit like McLaren. I'm on the up and the up, and hopefully one day I'll get paid $600 an episode. That'd be nice, I reckon.
One day.
I'm not acclaimed yet, but I will be. Anyway, where were we, Jim?
Oh, who bloody knows? Let's talk about Ferrari. Alpine doing well, I think, is the summary. Yeah. Good to see. And again, next year we'll see what happens with a design philosophy like the Beluga Whale or the Peugeot-esque kind of intake on top of the car. What could possibly go wrong for them? Ferrari, Carlos Sainz in 7th and Charles Leclerc in 5th. Carlos was very unhappy. Very, 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 very unhappy, Tommy T. He was like,
his pace was off, wasn't it?
I had no feeling in the car. Well, it probably didn't help that you binned it, but also had no feeling in the car all weekend. Pace wasn't there. Good, solid points finished for him, and lucky that it is, of course, Zandvoort, where it was more difficult to overtake. Yep. But Charles Leclerc outshone definitely this time Carlos Sainz.
Probably because his chassis wasn't broken. We'll probably come out weeks from now and he'll have a crack in the chassis from that crash that didn't look like much, and they managed to get fixed. But who knows? Charles Leclerc was awesome this week. I think he just did exactly what he was supposed to do. It highlighted that Carlos didn't have the pace though, and like we've been talking about, Campy, they've been pretty even this season. And you probably thought Sainz would be a bit ahead, but it's probably Leclerc, I think, on balance, that's winning that battle this year.
Yeah, look, I would compare Sainz and Ricciardo this having. I think Sainz is probably having a slightly better season overall, but they get to these races and they just have these deficits in pace that they just cannot understand compared to their teammates. And Sainz this weekend, his frustration will be is that he was 35 seconds behind his teammate. Yeah. They started at the same pace on the grid, and as the race progressed, Leclerc, over the 72 laps, what's that? About 4.2 tenths. A lap quicker over lace distance. And Sainz would be scratching his head going, where does this come from? Yes, he had a crash and they need to sort out the car. But, sometimes it just happens. You get in these cars and it's like, what am I driving? Where did this car come from on this track and these conditions? And I think that's what the frustration would be. With the benefit of Leclerc being in that team for 3 years now, and moving in and knowing the environment. He doesn't have those sorts of weekends in the car where he may have had them previously. He knows enough about the systems and the way it operates and how he should feel it in his ass and the sensations that he gets when he drives. He he won't have those weekends like Signs. But Signs will be frustrated, but I mean, it's his first year in the car. Next year's a different year, whole new regs, whole new thing. And that's what these guys have got their eyes on. They're not super concerned about the here and now in this season and what it could potentially be for them.
Yeah, it's been very bizarre though. As I said a little bit ago, we haven't seen Where's Wally at all. Like there has just been no interviews of him by Sky, and that's because there's no British drivers there. Of course, that's the first thing. But it's very bizarre because normally, like, we'll get something, any kind of like soundbite, and it just hasn't happened. And I wonder if that's on purpose because of the absolute mess that was last year, the disaster with Seb, and him saying stuff that he probably shouldn't have said. But it's I've just found it very bizarre.
But it's almost like a quiet Ferrari is a good Ferrari at the moment, isn't it? Like, when we're not talking mess, they're actually doing better on track. They're just staying out of trouble and keeping their nose clean. And they're now third in the constructors. So, to be honest, I think that's a better formula than when they're loud and yelling about being useless. I think continue. Don't change it.
Who was the old team principal? I'm looking at his face, grey moustache and smoke darts like a chimney. What's his name? I can't. But that was very much his.
This makes a good podcasting. Please just continue trying to remember.
Playing Guess Who virtually.
It's your team principal
with a mustache,
grey hair with a mustache.
Does he have a mustache?
Arriva Bene.
Click, click.
Arriva Benny, that's the one.
There it is.
There it is. Thank you to whoever was listening. There's no way James remembered that. He's done
me.
That was the live chat going off. Arriva Bene took the same approach in his final year at Ferrari as well, because he was just so sick of the media and the way that was portrayed and what he was trying to get done. He had a real time with it. I think. Where's Wally? His name's, it's pretty right for this year. We just haven't seen him, but I think it's a good thing for the organisation.
I think we'll see him next week. Let's be honest.
Will we?
Well,
we used to get interviews with him every 10 minutes last year, and he had to justify why the team was so shit.
Yeah.
This year, he's like, well, we're just getting all our off-track stuff sorted and right before we start being Ferrari again.
Yep. And they're getting there. As you say, Tommy T, a quiet Ferrari is a good Ferrari. And, they're going to be focusing on next year's car. They've got, obviously, the Haas team to think about. And he's also got the Ferrari junior drivers to think about too. Of course, Giovinazzi being one of them. And potentially Schwartzman, Eilert, the rest, as we've discussed in the pre-race podcast too. I'll tell you what, who I really want to see get up next weekend again is AlphaTauri at their home race. I said this on Twitter. You might as well just paint Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri in Red Bull colors and call it the second car, because he is having a better and more consistent time as a Red Bull driver than Sergio Perez is. He finished in fourth. Tsunoda not finishing, unfortunately, at all. Campy, where is Pierre Gasly? Is he in the bin, or is he very far permanently out of the bin?
Well, you know where he is on my scale. He's still in the bin and he's never coming out.
What?
I say this every time. I'm consistent. I don't rate him, but he's driving outstandingly. If he continues to get these results, he deserves the right to get out of the Red Bull umbrella and go somewhere else. But they've got to find a team that will take him. On the top team, I don't know how many times I have to say it.
He's driving the top team, apparently.
He's driving extremely well at the moment. Is he going to get wins? No. Is he going to get world championships? No. He's fighting and he's driving for 2 or 3 podiums a year when he gets it right and some luck happens up the front end. As long as he keeps putting himself in those positions, unfortunately, that's all he's driving for. As I said before, Pastor Maldonado is going to have a better racing record than this guy when he leaves F1, which is a shame.
The 2-time Monza winning Grand Prix guy one day and he punches you in the mouth.
Yeah.
Well, prove me wrong.
Imagine Campy rolling around on the grid walk as well. Oh my mouth.
What? If he wins it next week, you're going to look like such a tit.
Well, I look like a tit every time I get on camera anyway, so who cares?
Oh, this is
no, but
good.
look, he's driving extremely well and he's outperforming his teammate. Sonoda's a dud. Get rid of him. And it makes him look good. He's recovering from that stint that he had in the top Red Bull team. But if he wants to further his career, the first thing he's got to do is get out of his Red Bull contract
Yep.
and go to a Mercedes or even a Ferrari. There is two options. Then once he gets in one of those junior teams, perform like hell and get a test in one of the top teams, get in that test and knock everybody out of the park and go, oh, maybe he's a good fit in the top team. And then so he needs to go backwards or sideways into a Ferrari or Mercedes organization to then move up because he's tainted in Red Bull. It's not going to happen. I'd hate to see him still in AlphaTauri in the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
It would be a waste of his talent and the waste of the way he's driving his results at the moment. But it's a shame. That's where he is.
And he's 25, Campy, too. So, you know, he's in the range now where he should be finding his feet.
Yeah, but
and if he doesn't,
another 5 years and he's 30 years old and we're going, geez, he's on the wrong side of 30 now. What's he going to do?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
saying.
saying.
Is the top team going to take a chance on him?
That's what I'm saying. Absolutely. You know, he needs to prove now what Danny Rick was proving at 25 too. You know, that's that Red Bull, the pushing it forward years. And look, it's probably likely that he's going to Alpine eventually, isn't it?
I don't think guys get shots in top teams more than one. Who's had a shot other than Kimmy's had a shot in won a world championship, then came back and got into a top team. Yep. That is the exception to the rule. These guys do not. There's not enough spots on the grid to give guys 2 chances in world championship winning organizations. And it's just, he had his shot. It was too early. He should never have gone up. But when he got there, he was coming up against Max Verstappen and he shit the bed terribly.
And we know Yuki Tsunoda, Tommy T, is signed again for next year. That's all but confirmed. So obviously the conversations around Albon and going to Williams and everything else. But we haven't really seen the progress that we've seen other AlphaTauri / Toro Rosso, well, other Toro Rosso juniors, I should say, because AlphaTauri hasn't brought anyone in, like Albon, for example, and Gasly after the summer break or the summer shutdown period, they've been able to drive the car fairly consistently rather, and get it towards, you know, the mid of the grid, if you will. But Yuki just hasn't got it together, has he?
Not at all. I'm actually disappointed compared to what we saw, like maybe the first 3 races. We thought, oh yeah, this could be good. Give him a sec to kind of build some consistency. That's the opposite of what we've got. He's very inconsistent. He'll have a moment where he's like in the top 2 or 3 in a practice session, and he'll just fall off a cliff and you'll be completely useless again. He's struggling with whatever's going on with that car, but from all accord, that is one of the easier cars to jump in and have a crack at. Like it's kind of one of those cars that is very forgiving and kind of flatters drivers almost more than, say, the Red Bull, which makes people look stupid. So I don't know. I think, do they have to still sweeten the deal with having a Japanese driver with Honda, or is that kind of done and dusted now? Do they have to just...
There'll be some arrangement. Of course, we knew there was some arrangement this year for the Honda provision. There'll be something to do with next year, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. And Campy, you've said this in terms of Honda's investment in motorsport, that it's not going anywhere, and you use MotoGP as an example of that. Do you think at this point now, and especially if Red Bull win with Honda power units, the World Championship this year, that Honda go, geez, we've made a big mistake pulling out, and try and do a backflip like they've done in the past?
Well, I think that's what will ultimately happen. I think Red Bull take it over, but then before that happens, Honda's going to come back and they're going to try and rejig this. We want to work with you because globally it's doing plenty for them. But what we know about Honda as an organization, they get spooked at their own shadow when the global economy, something happens like COVID. I know in 2008, GFC, no one knew what was going to happen. Honda pulled their support from absolutely everything. And they've consistently done that when global events have been sketchy or there's no solidarity in what's going to happen in the economy in the next 3 to 5 years. COVID was definitely that scare that put them and said, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to pull out. And that's why their board made the decision they made. On the arse end of that, we're 18 months into it. We're looking, I mean, particularly the Northern Hemisphere is looking at it going, oh, well, that was a bit of a scaremongering. That was all bullshit. this is the next 2 years, and it's all on the up and up and up. So it wouldn't surprise me if Honda then goes back to Red Bull and says, "I know we've done the deal, but how do we work? We still want to be involved. We want to throw everything behind it again." They're going to be sitting there with their hands there, going, "Why do you continue to do this in this sport?" So it's a real shame. If they had stuck around after 2008, they would have won a world championship in 2009. You know.
Yeah.
Real shame for them.
They're gonna do it again.
Oh no, but
yeah, potentially.
I mean, but the Japanese and the way they do business, they are the most conservative business operators in the world, and to a point where I think it fails them on a global scale.
To be honest, if I'm Red Bull, I think I'm in the driver's seat with this. Pun intended. Is that they can. If Honda wants to jump back in, they go, yeah, but on our terms. It's still going to be called whatever we want. You can put a Honda sticker on stuff, but we're in control. We're setting all the kind of groundwork, and you work for us, basically. Yeah. They're the conditions if you want to come back in and steal some of our success. So I think it's actually kind of worked out well for Red Bull in that respect, because them going it alone is probably a scarier thought than we all really give it credit for. They're not an engine manufacturer. You're going against the might of Mercedes and Renault, who are huge corporations in comparison. You don't want to be doing that. On a whim with a couple of hundred people that you've nicked from Merck is somewhere in the middle of the UK. I think if they can get Honda to come back and help, that's going to be kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So I think they'll do that, but they'll do it on their terms, and they'll do it for the long term rather than Honda flip flopping and jumping in and out every second year. They'll be like, no, it's a Red Bull engine, and you can put a sticker on it.
But they've got all the influence to do so now because Honda's made the deals that they've made. So
yeah, exactly.
I just think it got to the point for Red Bull where they didn't have a choice. No manufacturer wanted to work with them. Yep. Honda was the only one that would supply them an engine at the end of the day, so they had to make that relationship work. Yep. And Dietrich at the top would have been going, well, I'm just going to have to throw more money into this. I've already spent X amount over the last 10 years. What's another $1 billion here investment in our own racing team and engine team now? So is that engine going to get on-road car manufacturing? Probably not. Let's get real. But they may be able to on-sell that technology to Renault, so they put it in their car, and it becomes a more viable operation for Dietrich and Red Bull as an organisation. So, look, man, good on them. I mean, bit of a masterstroke if it comes off that way for Red Bull, not so much for Honda.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Mercedes before we talk about Red Bull drivers, though. Valtteri Bottas, we've already mentioned. There is absolutely no love lost anymore. You are but a pawn in our game now, VB. Yep. Where as soon as I heard the Valtteri, it's James, I was like, come on, dude. Even Rosberg said he was in one of the rooms watching, shouting at the television, saying, you can't do that. You just have to let him do it. Yeah. And then when he got the lap record in the fastest race, apparently he was like, oh, this is so good. Yes, push it to Lewis. Yeah. Rosberg just can't help himself. Yeah. But it's just depressing, isn't it? My heart goes out to Valtteri because they've clearly dropped him. There is no shadow of a doubt after this race. Nope. Toto Wolff has come out and said they haven't announced anything because no contract has been signed, whether that's true or not. But we're going to expect to hear probably.
But George got told where he's driving next year, so.
Well, Wednesday or Thursday is when it will be announced. I think he's probably talking about Valtteri's contract with Alfa Romeo, not George's contract with Mercedes. Right. Because if I was Toto, I still want to be a good guy to Valtteri, and I think Toto's like that. But he needs to make sure everyone's looked after properly first. He's even said that. So we might see tomorrow, the day after. I mean, it's going to be announced ahead of this Grand Prix. So Thursday at the latest, probably Wednesday night.
James, what I want to know is if DC was right and Valtteri was told a long time ago whether this was happening or if it's a more recent thing. I think that'll be something interesting to come out. Hey.
Yeah, I think you're right. And certainly if you look back at Valtteri's performances this year, we haven't seen, performances and then how he's been outside of the car to the press. He hasn't been, as far as I'm concerned, the normal VB that we've seen. And I think the big incident that we had in Imola with George Russell also highlighted that fact more than anything else we've seen. DC probably right, to be honest, which will confuse him as well as everybody else because that's probably never the case. Campy, we know that we wanted Valtteri to take the championship fight this year, but it's just not happened. What is the fairy tale ending that VB can hope for in a career in Formula One?
Oh, I think he gets lucky and he goes away. He's a bit like a Jenson Button, Jenson Button at the end of 08. No world championship. Had a career that didn't really go his way. Didn't have a drive. No one was knocking on the door looking for him. Showed all the promises as a young talent coming through, but just never took the opportunity and got into a drive that he deserved. And then overnight, got that brawn drive with Barrichello and went on to win a world championship in 2009. Yes, he dominated the first 7 or 8 races that year, but the rest of the year wasn't like the first 7 races were.
Yes,
so everyone
true.
caught up and he did some amazing drives to win that world championship. Bottas is that quality of driver, and that is his best chance, I think. He's just going to have to get into whatever is on offer and hope for the best. And if it doesn't work out, well, it's a real shame, mate. But he's had 5 or 6 years at that Mercedes now, and you got to. I mean, Nico Rosberg only needed 3 years to get the job done. We're in his 4th or 5th year now, and he still hasn't really come close. So it's a shame.
It is a shame.
But at the end of the year, I mean, if Valtteri's in the lead and the team's saying, "I'll give it up for Lewis for points," what possible motivation will Valtteri have other than being a good, decent human being?
Exactly.
It could actually shit the bed in Mercedes. Realistically, it could leave them with egg on their face because, Valtteri's capable of coming out and winning 3 of the next 7 or 8 races or whatever we got left. So, and if Lewis comes second in those, that could be the difference in the world championship. And if he doesn't give up those points, Lewis could lose, and he's lost a world championship because they didn't play the team game properly. I mean, on paper they did everything right, but at the end of the day, you shaft the guy mid-year without giving him a carrot to hang on to for next year. Then, well, that's your own problem, right? They haven't played the off-track stuff properly.
Yeah, I think what really made me laugh and probably, again, sadder was after the race had finished and VB said that he was just playing around, really. When talking about doing the fastest lap, Toto mentioned to the Sky guys that it was just politely reminding Valtteri with the use of James on the radio as the head strategist to say, Lewis needs that extra point for the world championship. Lewis said there wasn't any problems, but I mean, we can all read through this, can't we? He clearly was frustrated at the situation and was showing, as a side note, that he still has the pace to get fastest lap, and he could have got it again if he wanted to, potentially gone faster than Lewis in that last lap attempt. So, yeah, no good for me. But just to hear the radio backwards and forwards, like, why are we pitting? Oh, it's precautionary. Oh, there might be vibrations.
Oh, no, that stuff.
Come on.
That's what pisses me off.
Yeah, and it's no good. We all love you, Valtteri. Adopted Australian, of course.
Yes.
And Hamilton. Look, Lewis Hamilton, annoyingly, was very, very easy to like this weekend. He really drove through past the booing saga of the last couple of races into the homeland and was just super chipper with every interview he had not in the car. He's classic, my tires are gone, Bono, then sets fastest lap. But out of the car, it was actually likable. Campy, do we start liking Lewis Hamilton now? Or
look, he's in the lines, Dan. There's only one way he could play it, and he played it perfectly.
No, there's not. He could have doubled down and been the villain.
He could have.
Heel turn, do that. I would have preferred it.
I don't care about the off-track stuff. The on-track stuff.
Off-track, eh?
Off-track.
What's off-track, you say? Well, that's a podcast about Extreme E. What a segue. To be honest, I think Lewis was more interested in winning off-track than he was winning on-track this week.
Oh, come on, mate. He was sensational. For a car that was slow, he pushed that thing to the limits. He tried absolutely everything in that car for the whole 72 laps to try and close that gap to Max Verstappen. Mercedes probably stuffed up their strategy in Lewis Hamilton's mind, but he still drove the absolute wheels off thing. I don't think there's too many drivers in any car in particular that Mercedes that could have kept within, the 3.5 seconds that
I
he
just
was
don't want to
constantly
hear about
within
the
max.
sooking. They're like, oh,
Mm.
why did we do this? It's like, it's
Yeah,
done now, dude.
It's
Like,
part of it though, Tommy.
I know, but I don't want to hear it.
We need
I
to.
want to hear like you would not hear that from Daniel. And if correct me if I'm wrong, but he would just be like, it is what it is. Like he just get on with it and just do his best. Lewis is complaining lap after lap. Like Lewis, we'll talk about it later. Like it's happened.
Mate,
Shut
the
up.
Poms
Like,
are
we
known
can't
for
go back.
whinging. It's in their DNA. It's what they do.
There it is.
We're from Australian. We're Australian,
We're
Tommy.
from Australian.
Mate, the Poms whinge about everything. We are brothers and sisters somewhere down the line, but geez, they can talk. And
We
geez,
need-
it pisses us off. But
Yep.
we've got to look at this. We have to look at this Max Verstappen v Lewis Hamilton and just take it for what it is. This is probably the greatest fight for a championship that we're going to see for a long time, and
Yes,
it'll go
it is.
down
Yep.
history as a mega fight. And we need to look at every race and just go, geez, what a spectacle. We didn't get the passing, but mate, these are two of the quickest guys on the planet. And
Maximus Verstappen did not put a foot wrong
No.
this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about Red Bull. Do go on, you very wonderful Dutch version of
I was
Lakeside
looking
Drive
for
host.
orange things to wear, and I don't have any.
So you just went
unfortunately.
full prisoner instead.
Yes, I was
Orange
I'll
would have
go
fitted
vo-
that
I'll go
too.
void of color. It was incredible, wasn't he?
yeah,
He looked so cool, calm, collected. I would have expected him to be, I don't know, like lapping up the fans, a bit more kind of emotional, like we see other people at their home races. But mate, he was a cool cucumber, and he was not phased whatsoever the whole weekend. He was there for business, and like I predicted, and you guys kind of backed up, he's coming out in this second half of this season after the break, and he is going to walk away with this championship.
Mm.
He's head down, and he's going for that thing. He does not care. Unlucky he didn't get to race properly last week, and he got half points. But this week he came out and got as many points as he bloody could. Like he is on fire, and he's taking prisoners. Like I'm here for it.
it's good to watch. It's awesome. We just need to smile and be happy that this is what we get to see this year. This is the season we've been crying out for since the
you're
start of the turbo hybrid era.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
someone
2016 was the last one, right? Like
Yeah.
Rosberg, Hamilton, but that was the same
In the
team.
same team. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Yep.
Man,
yep.
this is two of the biggest like F1 organisations ever in the history, outside of Ferrari.
Yeah.
And we just got to smile and appreciate it for what it
That's
is.
it.
Would
And
I
we also
rather it
love
be
the-
someone else? Absolutely, I'd rather it be someone else. But hey, it's good to watch.
But
Yeah.
we've also got to love the off-track stuff as well. The Red Bull v Mercedes.
Oh,
kind
not the
of stuff going
podcast?
on. Not the podcast. No. James, you've put this in the rundown, mate. You've told us to say this many times.
Oh.
You're right. I have. Yeah. Your bonuses will be coming
Cheeky
soon.
self promotion.
Can't help it.
No, but like that's a great part of us too, because like you said, 2016 was the same team, but we're getting all this kind of off-track stuff, a bit of frostiness between Toto and Karen. It's really everything to play for both. And even the number 2 drivers are getting dragged into it somewhat. I mean, when they are even close, but it's the best season we've had in a while, right? Like this is exactly what we want. We want close. We want the championship changing week to week as to who's leading, not just someone walking away with it, which is what we've had for as long as I can remember.
Yep, absolutely. And I also loved as well, and Ashley in the YouTube live chat has just mentioned Danny Rick wearing a Max Verstappen cape on the bus going around for the first thing. Yeah. He is big fan. So we already know who he wants to win. So I guess that's who we want to win is Max. But you're absolutely right. Both of these guys. He deserves it, doesn't he? And I mean, Tiesto giving a high five coming out, I'm sure that meant absolutely nothing to him. It's like Venus Williams at Monaco.
Think about it long term. If Max wins this year, that means Lewis is going to come back even harder next year with new regs. That makes next season even more
with
exciting.
George Russell pushing as hard as he can to win his first world championship in his first year at Mercedes. It's going to be interesting.
Big.
Perez, let's talk
about the cake though.
You're right. Absolutely, you're right. Let's talk about Perez and then we'll wrap up. I mean, Campy, you said that it was going to be difficult for him to get into the points. He finished in 8th. Anything to say for that?
Yeah, he shit the bed. He locked up that his first set of hards. That really compromised him. Otherwise, he's probably realistically on for a 4th or 5th place. I don't reckon he would have got Gasly, but he definitely would have got both Ferraris. So,
Yep.
again, he shit the bed at the wrong time. Stuff qualifying up, but good recovery drive. It's not good enough though. It's not what we want to see.
What do you
It's
think
not
about his
what-
contact with Lando?
Racing incident. It's just, I think that was more Lando's fault than anyone else. Lando definitely cut the line off going around the outside.
We can see Lando's head looking as well a little bit.
But we've been here before.
damning.
This is all Red Bull ring all over again, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
racing incident for me. Not a lot in it. More Lando's fault, but Perez, I mean, some genuine pace in that car to pass those.
That's what I mean.
That
Like
caliber of.
Like I get driver of the day. I do understand that, but also if you're good, like why are you so far
Yes.
back? Like what are you doing? You should be up helping your teammate in minimum 4th. That should be the worst place you qualify, and that should be the worst place you finish the race. Like that's I don't get. And this is what we've always had with the Red Bull driver, the second driver, is the frustration of like, why aren't you there like VB is every single week at the literally like a 10th behind Lewis,
The front end,
which is incredible. Like when you really like zoom out and see how good VB is, he's maximum like a 10th off every week from what Lewis is doing in qualifying.
Yep.
And he's right there in the race.
Yep.
So it's just not good enough from the second driver in the arguably the best car. Like,
Yep. Same conversation we've had for 3 years.
Yep.
Get better.
Oh well, hopefully we can see him make some improvements. But
Perez,
yes,
Perez won't get 3 years at Red Bull if
No.
that is the way that he continues to drive.
no, you're
I think
absolutely
they
right.
made a call on his future for next year way too early, by the way, too. So
Well, they're doing the opposite of what they've done in the past, haven't they? They've tried to go with certainty and try and sort of mellow everything out to move stuff on. Look, guys, you're right. Monza's going to be great. This championship battle is going to continue to be great with Verstappen and Lewis. Absolutely. Well, that's our team by team analysis. We've still got some stuff to get through. Thank you for sticking with us for this longer podcast. Campy, national anthem, Davina Michelle. We got two bloody goes at it. Please give me your rating out of 10.
Oh, very good. 7 out of 10 for me. That was like a love song dedication. On,
I like it on the podium. I like a live
Double.
anthem.
yeah, it was
Double.
It was a get up too. It was. She looked stunning. Great voice. Interesting anthem though. It was lovely. It just made me shed a tear. So yeah, very good.
Well,
7
we've
out of
heard
10.
it so many times, haven't we? With Max being on the
Oh,
top
not
step
like
this
that.
year.
That was excellent.
But that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
we've heard it so many times, and you're like, oh, that's what it can sound like. This is like the Austrian death metal version. I'm here for it. More of it. And then we did. We got 2 versions. Tommy T, did that wake you up again at the end of the race?
It did.
Good.
Yeah, that's.
Good.
I woke up as like Max was hoisting it. It was great.
Very, very good. Your Dutch senses were going off, so you could
Yes.
wake up for it. No fly pass this weekend that I could see, so I'm giving it a question mark out of 10. The only fly pass that I know of is the British guy who paid 1,600 quid to have a Lewis Hamilton sign flown up and down the beach at Zandvoort over the weekend. Big
Which is
fan.
excellent.
Maybe because that plane was in the airspace, they couldn't get anyone else in for the fly past.
If that was you, join the Discord because we'd like to know more.
Yes.
The Dutchies have a bit of a warped sense of humour. So
Very good out of
Hey.
10.
very good.
Wow.
Yes, settle
They do,
down.
Jim. I'm engaged to one. They're a bit odd.
Do you realise she was Dutch? That explains a lot. You and Tommy T now family eventually, I suppose. That's how that works. All right, let's go to our favourite part of the weekend. Campy, if I ask you this time your favourite part of the weekend, what are you going to say?
Qualifying? Oh,
He never gets it. You think he
Yeah,
knows.
it is time for the Fantasy League names. If you haven't yet joined our Fantasy League, there is a link in the description below, and you can join to win good merch prizes. You'll even potentially win some of the Campy collection that Tommy T is going to design, which will be very, very interesting. It won't just be a picture of his face, we promise. Might just be a picture of his beanie. Anyway, here are the names that I have picked, and there are a lot. So massive shout out to all of you. I couldn't fit them all in, but here we go. Vincent Van Go Steen N. 2 double Dutch girls go around the outside. Alex B. That's for you, Campy. Alex Baxter. Good. He and I were in a band together back at school. So shout out to you, my friend.
were you
Hamilton's-
in a band?
Hamilton's
Was
in
it a musical theatre band or something?
Go. No, it wasn't actually.
It's where those singers think they're actually singers. They're a bit like Mariah Carey or something.
shouldn't have mentioned it. Hamilton's incessant and predictable moaning. Jonathan C, very good. Dutch Oven. 2, James M and Josh L, both with the same team now. They're very well done,
Nice.
lads. Danny Rick, the work husband, brackets max everybody needs. Haley H, yes, in terms of supporting, I'm not going to win this race, but I want my best mate too, so I'm going to wear a cape with his colours. Get off your phone at work, Michael Massey. Aaron B. I think this is my favorite. Stroop waffle rolling, Michael chasing. Michael Italiano. There's been nothing but Stroop waffles for him. Gemma C, well done to you. This is great from Nicholas H. Hello there, Manus. And he won't understand that, but of course it's a Star Wars reference. That's a carryover from the GP episode, MotoGP podcast rather. England in the bin. Nick B, well done. Here's my other favorite, Campy Potter and the Beanie of Secrets.
If that's not a t-shirt, I don't know what it is.
Colin M, my goodness. Look at him. Absolutely no idea what it means. Couldn't have any idea to save himself.
I presume it's a Harry Potter reference.
Oh, you reckon? Vote 1, Kimmy to replace Crofty, Thomas B. At least he wouldn't say as much, and everything he did say would be fantastically relevant and nice to hear. One-Eyed Sky Sports, Simon M. Rolling Stroop Waffles, Ben Morrison, and favourite Campy, sponsored by Camel. Legends, the whole lot of you, well bloody done. Very good. That's the best we've had for a long time. As I said, you two can join our fantasy. It's not really about where you come. It's about your name. Campy, though, unfortunately, is leading our trio in 33rd position. Tommy T, you're in 39th, and I am in 47th, not having...
That's Max Verstappen's number 2. That's a good omen for me. Just off and away into the sunshine.
It is no good. No good at all for Tommy T or for me. But that is what it is, lads. Thank goodness we got a race. It was a bit boring, but at least we had a race unlike last weekend. But good news, of course, we are going to Monza very, very soon. A massive, massive shout out to you if you've been watching along on our live stream on YouTube. Thank you for leaving reviews. Thank you. We've almost got 90 reviews on the Apple Podcasts app in Australia. That is so cool. We are one of the highest rated podcasts in this country. And thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. I know I keep on about it, but genuinely it makes a huge difference. It makes all of this worthwhile in the long run. Campy, Tommy T, you're both absolute legends. Looking forward to Monza, the pre-drinks episode, of course, on Sunday morning, our time, and another Monday night episode for post-race. Until then, lads, we will see you very soon. Thank you for your company, and it's time to head